Hi guys, my name is Moray and welcome to our anti-AI generated history channel. Today I wanted to talk about what it was like to be a novus homo in the Roman Republic. So what is a novus homo? Well, my personal favorite statesman, Cicero, was one, and it was a new man. And what is a new man? A man with no connections who's risen through the ranks. We see so many Nepo babies in ancient Rome and so many well-connected people. Being a novus homo was quite a hard experience in ancient Rome. In a time of connections and elites, we're going to discuss how hard the new man, the novus homo, had it. Let's talk about different kinds of elite in Rome. The nobiles. The noteworthy, the noble, are Roman senatorial aristocracy. And you can see this class emerge after the conflict of the orders, where you can see the legal equality of patricians and plebeians called all magistracies. By the late Republic, the definition of a nobilis became more specific and exclusive, and this family was considered part of the elite. One of his ancestors had been elected to the consul, and this created a new type of aristocracy. And this was distinct from the broader senatorial class. A key privilege that these people had was the ius imagine, the right to possess and display the wax funeral masks of their deceased ancestors. These masks were stored in the family's home and brought out for public funeral processions. This wasn't just a ritual, it was a political thing. Funeral was a long testament to their family's history and provided them with inheritances and auctoritas, authority and prestige. This was crucial for winning elections and maintaining influence. In ancient Rome, we didn't have as much individualism. It was all about the family. And I mean the family's prestige, not just the individual. Then you had the cursus honorum. The cursus honorum was a structured sequence of public offices that aspiring Roman politicians. It was a ladder. The Lex Vilia Annalis of 180 BCE introduced minimum age requirements to these offices. And the system was there to promote merit over popularity. However, despite the nominal meritocratic structure, the path to power was far from level. And yeah, all senatorial men could walk this ladder, but it was hard. Automatically, through this process, wealthy, connected people had a pre-existing client base and lots of connections. And if you were a novus homo, then you had to make all these connections yourself. That's why Cicero's story is so remarkable. A novus homo was the first man in his family to come to the Senate. And whilst we think of this kind of achievement in modern society as being amazing because of how hard a novus homo would work, it was met with disrespect. A novus homo would not have prestigious ancestors. And the career of a novus homo was really different. The path was riddled with systematic and social obstacles. And this required immense skill to navigate. And there was systematic bias too. Any systematic bias often came from a nobile against any man with novitas. The established elite genuinely thought that their ancestors gave them their privilege. The nobiles wanted to keep novus homos out. To nobiles, a novus homo was a threat to them because they had a noble lineage. And novus homos just had hard work that they had done. Take, for example, Gaius Marius, a novus homo. Sallust, who's a historian, noted that in Gaius Marius's case, the nobiles could fall back on the achievement of their ancestors. But novi homines, they had nothing but their own deeds to support them. He states that political capital was not a stable inherited asset, but a constantly fluctuating currency that had to be perpetually earned and renewed through public success. For a novus homo, the success was fleeting because they didn't have any ancestors to back it up on. Novus homo had to go large, they had to think large. New man had to constantly perform. It was exhausting. Take for example my guy Cicero. Mr. Marcus Tullius Cicero here did come from a wealthy equestrian family, but no ancestral ties to the elite. And rather than the military, Cicero chose the law courts. Cicero's political capital was built entirely on his extraordinary skill as an orator and a lawyer. Cicero began his legal career in his 20s and rose through the cursus honorum, the ladder we've been speaking about, and he used his legal cases to leverage him more connections. These increased his reputation and bolstered his name, and he was a performer. But he was never accepted by the nobiles. He had to be the master of self-promotion. You know, he had friends like Atticus who helped, very rich, but he was constantly working. Self-promotion and political maneuvering were a 24-hour job for Cicero. And he tried to reframe the idea of being a novus homo rather than as a disadvantage, but of something of personal virtue and merit. He contrasted with the perceived laziness of the descendants of nobile families. Cicero contrasted himself with historical figures to boost his name, to compare himself to something. And what's ironic is that we see the early Americans, you know, of the founding fathers compare themselves to Cicero to do the same thing. Gaius Marius too, he was an equestrian and he was really unsuccessful. But Gaius Marius had military talent. Take for example the Battle of Aristocracy in 105 BCE, where 2 Roman armies were annihilated. And due to aristocratic incompetence, created a wave of public outrage. Marius, with his reputation for blunt honesty, was the perfect candidate. In response to a severe manpower shortage, Marius initiated the now what's known as Marian reforms, and he altered the Roman military and recruited them from the landless poor. Oh god, the military-industrial complex started with Gaius Marius! You learn something every day. In exchange for their service, Marius offered them pay, spoils from campaigns, and most importantly, the promise of land upon retirement. And this was a fantastic solution to the military crisis. As a novus homo, Gaius Marius had to think outside the box, and therefore created what we now know as the military-industrial complex. Gaius Marius had no idea that he was creating the blueprint for Sulla and Caesar, because he shifted the loyalty of soldiers from the state to their general. Look, Marius and Cicero are some of the most famous novus homos. And their strategies show us that these 2 men had to really think outside the box and were revolutionary. One essentially led us to the Renaissance. And then the second one, Gaius Marius, well, he changed the way the army was. This is how these men operated. And we need to give more credit to them because they were not respected in Rome, but they did work hard. Thank you so much for coming to this video. I'll see you in the next one.